crack straight on into the Omnichannel panel. So thank you very much, Philip, for giving us a great run in there. Hopefully it's not all doom and gloom in the omnichannel space. I think it really, you hear all these buzzwords. I know Steve put it to us, should we call it Opti-channel? I'm like, God, don't do that, please. Don't chuck in another word. And I think really it comes down to the crux of, are we delivering value? And value can mean many different things to many different people, and that's where relevance comes in. So are we truly delivering value in our omnichannel interactions with our customers? And so what we're going to explore today with the lovely Lynne and Felipe, and I just want to give a nod to Elise from Menarini. She couldn't be here today, but she absolutely helped put this together. We're going to explore some of the barriers that are stopping us from truly delivering value in our omnichannel interactions, and how we can overcome these. Because I think we could see from the emails, it isn't. We've got so much opportunity, and I think it's really understanding what do doctors, our customers, actually want and need from us. Not the whole spew it on a page, but what do they want and need from us. So we're going to start with a poll. If I can get that up, please. If we move on, there's been loads of research, and we've heard it yesterday as well. There was that OzDoc report too. Recent research shows that while pharma companies rate their own omnichannel customer experience at 7 out of 10, good on you. I want to know what you're doing. Healthcare professionals, our customers, rate it at only 4.5 out of 10. What score do you think best reflects how you're delivering in your organization today? So here we go. 4.5, somewhere in between. No one's going brave on the 7 out of 10?
Everyone's lying.
And this is recent research from DT Consulting, and it's also been backed up from, there's some recent data from Precision AQ, which I think it's, the perception gap is actually over 50% between what we believe as our pharma companies, what our customers are saying. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to kind of dive into perception versus reality. So thank you for filling in. I think all of us are a bit on the fence. We have not nailed it. So let's try and help you there today. So are we meeting customer expectations or drinking our own Kool-Aid? We love a bit of the Kool-Aid. So the first question, what have you seen firsthand in your organization that helps explain this perception gap? And how do you actually validate if you're meeting customer expectations? Felipe.
Yeah, I think we all can agree that we get too caught up in the fact that we have to measure a bunch of KPIs to meet the mark and to do our presentations to regional, global, and that's fine. We have to think about operational excellence as our baseline. We have to nail it, and that has to be the rule for everyone. But when we think about an omnichannel campaign, rather than focusing on the number of emails, the number of web pages visits, or anything in relation to those KPIs, think about how you can set up an actual outcome that you want to get out of that campaign. What is it that you're trying to achieve with a deployment of a series of channels with content from our products? And aim to that goal, understand that perhaps, even though the KPIs are important, as I said, there's much more to look into it. And omnichannel is I guess, our framework to try and achieve that. In the efforts of trying to get those numbers to the right place, we may end up actually missing potential feedback that we can get from our customers. And on top of omnichannel, we can also look at the customer experience. And it really, back to the presentation we just saw, it's not about the volume, it's about the quality that we do. It's about how we actually integrate pieces of content across the different touch points and how we move our customers from one place to another based on that outcome that we're trying to achieve.
It's a great point, Felipe. I think we often get really focused on that number, that NPS or whatever it is. But what is it, that qualitative piece underneath that is driving that? I think that's a key point to remember. What is it, the improvement that they want, or why are they telling you? Because a number on its own, it's nothing unless you know what's driving that behavior. And I know, Lynne, you'd mentioned when we were in our discussions about the nice metrics.
Like we always like to have a nice looking number to go to those leadership meetings with, but I think it's been comfortable with, the less nice looking numbers, it gives you feedback, it gives you something to work on. You know, like you said, Felipe, it's actually giving you something to achieve and improve. And I think we're comfortable now with, you know, just because you created an email doesn't mean to say you have to send it to everyone on the target list. It's who is that email actually for? Send it to those small numbers of people, and don't go in and say, yeah, we sent it and had an open rate of, you know, whatever. You don't need to present that. You might have only sent it to one person. That's actually okay, because it was for them, you know. Get it targeted and get it right.
No, it's a great point there. So it comes back to Philip's point before. It's that relevance piece, I think. So yes, it sounds like we're definitely drinking a bit of the Kool-Aid, but we're going to dive into one of the next hurdles that we hear about many times in Omnichannel: the data, the technology, and the governance. How do we bridge those silos for actionable insights? So I'm sure we're going to open up a can of worms here, but we're going to give it a crack. So some say technology should lead the way in driving omnichannel integration, while others argue that culture and governance matter more. Where do you stand, and what evidence do you have from your own work that supports this view? Over to you, Lynne.
Okay, well, I love technology. I am definitely always excited when IT bring out the next shiny toy to play with. But yeah, I think if you don't have the right culture and governance in place, the adoption of the technology can be slow to get that adoption going. Or on the flip side, if everyone's very keen to adopt, but we don't have the governance and the training, and why are we going to use this tech? You know, it can be chaos, and then that first experience can be a poor one. I guess an example from my experience, we recently had some new technology to play with, and it was for the purpose of delivering content to customers faster. So we set up a bit of a pilot. We looked at the tech. It was very easy to use, well integrated to all of our systems, so yay, that's great. But we actually then spent more time looking at how do we stand this content technology up? What is the why? How do we get the why across to the team? And how do we get that right first experience of using it so that it's not just tech thrown at people and we start using it in the wrong way? And, you know, in this example of it being a content delivery tool, the wrong way could be, great, now we can make millions of emails really quickly and spam our customers. Wrong, you know. So we developed an agile way of working across marketing, medical, production, omnichannel, and we can now deliver content in weekly sprints. We deliver content in 2 days from idea to available for the rep to send. And yeah, that is very fast, and it can be very tailored because you can write something for that one customer and know that it will only be sent once, but you'll probably get a click-through rate of 100% because you only sent it to one person. So yeah, that's a good example of getting the culture and the mindset right for the tech to work.
Oh, thank you, Lynne. And that really supports, I know, Leah and Nicole in the panel yesterday when we talked about change. And I think I mentioned our own painful journey with the content authoring tool. So I'm so impressed that you're churning out stuff in a week. But it's so important to get those examples and things. And so now I'm going to hand over to you, Felipe. Do you have a different point of view on how you kind of approach it?
Yeah, I guess for me it's mostly about technology. Of course, I understand the value of the mindset and the actual change management that we have to do when we bring technologies to market. Probably as an example, 10 years ago, I used to be a marketing automation specialist, and using technologies that are probably a decade old may lead us to think, okay, are we actually falling behind? When you think about technologies like marketing automation, they're relatively easy to use. They're built for the user, and the user being us or a marketer or any other company out there. Having said that, I think that we are, I guess, relatively good at putting layers on top of technology that probably hinders the performance of that technology. That's when the change and the mindset actually comes in place. We have to truly get our colleagues to understand how to use the technology, how to actually have the right support in place from a model operational perspective, Do we have global, local support? What is it that we need to do to make it easier for them to implement? Again, we're talking about technology that isn't new, perhaps is relatively new for the industry. Now we're adding layers of technology with AI, and that potentially can improve the way we do things or how we actually manage technologies in our organizations. So I guess to answer your question, I'll drive with technology, and I'll let you drive with change and mindset, but I guess both together is the right combination.
And yeah, I think it's a really good point. And I think a number of you have mentioned shiny toys. And those shiny toys are only as good, I think, as the path that's mapped out, the so what. And I think that so what is so important. If it's about this is going to allow more time for you to be more strategic, or this is going to allow us to personalize better, I think it's all those important things. And then the tool helps us get there faster. So great points. Now we're going to get into some barriers. So I'll get each one of you to tackle one key barrier to breaking down silos, because we know depending on how your organizations are set up, we heard about examples of going agile, and we know Roche does this, and then other organizations where the technology functions sit separate, some sit in global. So I'd love to hear, from a data or technology perspective, what's been the main obstacle and how have you addressed it, Felipe?
I guess I've seen the different, type of models when you have a global to local approach or a purely local approach where you have more agility in the side in the technology. So in essence, you can get away with breaking those silos easier in that side. But we all know that we change over time, and when you move into an operational model that is global to local, I think we are getting better at that product ownership from a global perspective, and actually partnering with the local affiliates to be able to co-create that solution. So in essence, in the past, we would have seen an out-of-the-box solution dropped into the market with very little flexibility for the market to make changes according to the needs that we have. And now I've seen cases already where there's a true partnership with a global product owner that actually asks the local markets to fit the needs of a market so that they can tailor that solution. That really helps. That really actually supports the previous point about breaking those, the understanding or the usability of that technology with colleagues that perhaps are not the most technically savvy, but the products being made for them is actually easier to co-create with global and bring them to market.
And I know we had a bit of a chat before, Felipe, around, because I know you cover like Korea and stuff, very different behavioral differences of the customers. And I think you mentioned there from a consumption of the GPs and physicians, they use very different platforms. So I suppose super important to understand when global is working with local, those nuances for each market, would you say?
Yeah, and it talks about that point about the Kool-Aid or just ticking the box of an exercise from global. It doesn't work. Really seen how a channel that may work in an APAC country potentially is not the best for Australia, right? And we have to be able to raise our hand and say, no, actually, let's think about a different approach because it doesn't work for us the same way it works for South Korea.
Yeah. Awesome. Now we're going to go to the hearts and minds. So from a cultural and mindset perspective, what's been the biggest challenge and what practical steps have you done to overcome it, Lynne?
I think one of the biggest challenges, we work in a very fast-paced, busy environment, and I think Omnichannel is seen as this very complex, how do we do this? We're going to have to wait. Let's wait until this launch is done. Let's wait until, we've done the P2 budget plan or, insert next excuse here kind of thing. So yeah, it needs to be seen as an essential. It's not a nice to have. Customers are experiencing good omni-channel customer experience with their bank, with their car, with their groceries. So why not at work? Why not with pharma? So yeah, I guess to overcome that, it's kind of positioning omni-channel as an enabler of commercial success, not as something that we have to do and it's going to take too much time and get in the way. And yes, it's complex, like it covers the data, the right content, you need to have all of the technology stood up, but, just build a plan and start where you are and work to improve that. Don't see it as some big giant thing that you have to conquer. just chip away at it, and we're always going to be getting better at a good omni-channel experience for the customer.
So it sounds like it's back to Dave and Maria's point, those 1%ers. Sorry.
Yeah, I think on that point, on the mindset, the why is really important, because I've seen cases where the why is not clear, right? So is it just a check the box exercise and you ended up with those answers, or you know what, let's do it in Q3 because we're kind of busy right now.
And I love that, because it always comes back to what's the problem we're trying to solve for. And I think at the end of the day, and I love your point, Lynne, around that our customers, their consumers, every day, they expect things within 8 seconds. We all do. So why are we giving them something that sucks? Oh, I've got to go through a password. I've got to do this. It just doesn't work. So I think it comes down to the crux of, are we truly designing with the end customer in mind? Because that's all it's about. It's about giving the best experience we can so that they can get what they need, because there is a sick patient at the end of it. It always kind of comes down to that. Awesome. On to the fun home stretch. Innovation versus compliance. We love a bit of this. So, collaborating to push boundaries, and you absolutely can. We've seen it peppered through all the presentations. So, some say the best way to innovate in pharma is to ask for forgiveness, not permission. While others argue that partnering with compliance, legal, and medical early on is the only path. Where do you stand, and can you share a time when your approach either accelerated or slowed down innovation? And I'm going to hand over to you first, Felipe.
The key for me is the what and who are we engaging with within the organization. Quite often when we get these shiny new tools, it's a rollout process, we put it in market and then off you go and use it. But then we get the questions, how about this, that, privacy, legal, all of that. Bringing the right people into the table at the right time, it might sound like a corny sort of thing to say, but it's the key, right? The collaboration of being able to explain to colleagues, for example, from medical compliance, it's getting them to understand omnichannel truly. It's not, we may understand omnichannel, the marketers as well, and the field force, but for a medical compliance colleague, they have to get more details out of it. What are we doing with the data? Is it properly integrated? Are we legally covered from all aspects? And the moment you bring these colleagues on the table and you get them on board, and you get them to truly understand omnichannel, the barriers are just off the table, and they truly collaborate with a brand strategy that is easier to implement in an omnichannel approach.
That's brilliant. I think, and we've heard it, is this taking people in the journey, that clear, what are we aiming for? What's that end vision? And I heard a brilliant one the other day at, I think it was someone from Telstra, and they were talking about trying to integrate a new multilingual AI translation tool into their app. And I think they too have compliance. And I think they got the rebuff of, but what if it doesn't translate effectively? And I love the digital guy. He was like, surely it's better than them not understanding it at all. So I think we've just got to be really practical when we go in with these kind of things, because we've absolutely got to chip away at these barriers. So now over to you, Lynne. When balancing creativity and regulatory guardrails, is the greater barrier the rules themselves, or the mindset and risk appetite of internal stakeholders? How have you approved these challenges in your own organization?
Well, coming from outside of pharma, I came to pharma about 5 years ago, and wow, so many rules. What? I nearly turned around and left, but here I am. We're used to being able to say things like world's crunchiest chips, and no one's going to check, are they the crunchiest? Should we say that? No, we just put it out creatively, yay. But yeah, I guess once you understand the rules and the principles behind them, it helps you to, work to find a better solution. And I think from the mindset point of view, the stakeholders aren't, know people. They just don't necessarily understand what it is that you're trying to do. I've learned from experience not to go in like a, overexcited puppy, like, yay, look at this cool thing. They're not as excited, and they don't understand it. So like you said, bring them on the journey with you. Get them in early, and also, I work really well with my compliance partners now. They love to hear how things are done outside of pharma, and then we can have that conversation of, how might we do this inside pharma? So, take those experiences of what is your customer experiencing outside of Pharma in an omni-channel world? How do we do that here? How can we work together on that?
Yeah. So it sounds good. I think it's like having those kind of guardrails and just clearly showing them what the future state looks like. So it all goes back to this change and bringing people on the journey. So, no, awesome, thank you. And if we can just put our wrap-up slide, please. We're nearly there. We're just standing between you and coffee and nice pastry. So, obviously, we've covered a lot in the last 20 minutes. We're never going to, I don't suspect you're all going to go away and do some amazing omni-channel thing, but hopefully, we've left you with a couple of sound things to think about in how might you kind of challenge that next thing or bring your your colleagues on the journey. So I think one of the first things I'll cover, and then I'll hand over. So I think find a quick win, speed momentum. And I'll go back and sorry, it sounds cheesy, but the 1%ers truly do matter. I think I said it yesterday, progress, not perfection. What is a real pain point? Is it, we had one the other day, I think it was an invoicing template or something. Sounds tiny, but that bit of using acronyms and the customer's not understanding one simple thing alleviates lots of pain with an in-field team, but it gets rid of all that misunderstanding and the back and forth with customers. So find that thing and drive a change, that one improvement. And I'll hand over to you, Felipe, on the next point.
I think we can all agree that there's no omnichannel without data. That's the key point that we're trying to address here, and there's no brand execution without a process, right? So my suggestion is go and tackle those barriers and those, blockers at a time in a short period of time, get the right people on board, understand where the blocker is, and see how you move forward from there. To truly enable, a smooth execution of omnichannel, you gotta be able to have clean data, have people on board, and then the right processes in place.
And over to you, Lynne, on the compliance side.
Yeah, I think it's probably an obvious one, but yeah, make sure that you're bringing compliance in early on the journey, turn them into a partner to brainstorm with, and like I said, show them some examples outside of Pharma and say, well, how do we do this? You're all consumers. You might have had a great experience with one of your, companies that are talking to you, so bring that to compliance and say, how do we do this?
Awesome. I think a big round of applause to Felipe and Lynne. Thank you for helping us crack the code.